Hello and a good day from all of us here at Bibaswan Educational Foundation. The UPSC mains of 2025 are soon upon us. They will be conducted from 22nd of August, and it will be conducted over a period of 5 days. Now, for each of these days, you will have to be writing each paper for 3 hours, and a total of 27 hours will be devoted to acing this examination. Now, the thing is, because the examination dates are only a month away, you have to understand that this is the particular time period that will make or break your dreams to becoming a future civil service officer. As such, Bibaswan Educational Foundation is presenting to you a UPSC mains paper strategy for this last few days. And I assure you that if you follow these strategical tips, it will give you an edge over the other aspirants, over the other thousands of candidates who are going to be appearing for this examination from different parts of the country. Just remember that your only competition is yourself, and in order to ace this particular competition, you cannot only do hard work, you also have to do a huge amount of smart work as well. On this particular note, we are going to be starting our UPSC mains paper strategy for the next 30 days. Remember, the first point is consolidation time is over. Now is the time to create framework and work on your answers. You see, over the past 1 year that we have been preparing for this examination, the majority of your preparation is devoted to a combination of preparing for both prelims as well as mains. Now, because you have been preparing for prelims and mains at the same time for such a long period, it is already assumed that a majority of your mains preparation is already over. Now, the UPSC prelims results came sometime around the beginning to the mid of previous month, which is in June. And as such, this year, particularly in 2025, the candidates have had a smaller amount of time compared to the usual amount of, say, roughly 3 months that they would get for their mains preparation. So we assume that in the past few days, you have worked on your notes. The note making period is over. Now is the time to consolidate. Now, what do I mean by consolidation? It doesn't mean that you have to write your same notes over and over and over again. No. When I say consolidation, it means that you have to already build upon the material that you have collated and created for yourself. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by consolidation. So say, for example, you are preparing a particular topic for GS1. Now, as we know, GS1 includes history, geography, a little bit of social justice as well. Art and culture is also an important part of this particular paper. Now, in GS1, say for example, you are studying something about the Governor Generals of India. About the Governor Generals of India. Now, at this time, at this particular juncture of the examination, your goal is not to make any further notes about this. No, note making period is over. Your objective is to see that, okay, say for example, I am studying about Lord Dalhousie. Say for example, today is a Wednesday, and today we are sitting down to prepare about Lord Dalhousie. Now, when you're preparing about Lord Dalhousie, go through your notes and try to see how much you can recollect about this particular person. Or say, for example, you're reading about Mughal art and architecture. Try to see how many points you can recollect about these things. That is what I mean by consolidation. You have to see that at least in your head, you are retaining about 70 to 80% of the material that you have studied in the course of this 1 year. Your objective should be to maintain this percentage when you are trying to recollect, when you're trying to consolidate. Now, one of the tips which is very useful when you're doing your consolidation is create interconnected material. Now, what do I mean by interconnected material over here? Well, you see, despite the fact that there are 4 separate papers, each dealing with their individual subjects, these papers are linked to each other. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if these papers are linked to each other, then why are we studying them separately? It's because at their core, they are very different papers. But there are certain themes, certain keywords, certain principles that link across all of them. Say, for example, in GS1, you might be studying about the Sufi movement. Sufi movement is an integral part when we are preparing for history or art and culture, specifically when we are preparing for prelims as well. It is also important for mains. Now, when we are preparing for the Sufi movement, for the GS1 paper, specifically for mains, your idea should be to understand that, okay, I have Sufi movement over here. This is going to help me in history and art and culture. But at the same time, in the ethics paper, say for example, you have some question about Guru Nanak. Okay. Now, when it comes to this, when it comes to Guru Nanak, the one thing that you have to remember is the fact that a lot of the philosophies of Guru Nanak are also inspired from the Sufi movement. And as such, you can take the things that you have studied over here and use it over here. That is what I mean when I say interconnectivity. This is what I say when I mean to say that you have to consolidate. You have to be intelligent enough to realize that all of these papers, while being separate subjects on their own, have certain common themes across them. Say, for example, the material that is here in the social justice part of the syllabus can be also used in the portion which is dedicated to governance in GS2. Or say, for example, any material which is related to governance in GS2 can also be used for economy in GS3. So you have to understand that at the core of all of these papers, there is an underlying principle that you have to do your smart work. And how to do the smart work? Try to understand the common themes across all of these papers, create a singular source of material from which you can refer from. Okay. Now remember, this is very important. Remember that it is not important to cram too much data or be very specific about statistics. What do I mean when I say that it is not important to cram too much data or be very specific about statistics? Well, you see, whenever you are preparing for your mains examination, like I have said, you are going to recollect 70 to 80% of what you have studied. But at the same time, you also have to remember that in this 70 to 80%, a majority of the things that you are going to be recollecting are concepts. It's not going to be data, it's going to be concepts. So, remembering too much data can be very detrimental for you. If you're trying to remember every single statistic that has been published in the past 5 years, say with respect to agriculture, say with respect to food security, say with respect to unemployment, with respect to inflation, with respect to the amount of investments that have been done in defense and so on and so forth, you are going to muddle up your preparation. What you have to remember are only certain salient points. What do I mean when I say salient points? Say, for example, the topic is food security. You have a question about food security that you have to deal with in your examinations. How are you going to keep so much facts about it in your head? You don't need to remember too much. You know the certain things like there's going to be MSP, there's going to be National Food Security Act, there are going to be, APMCs. These are the basic things that you've studied for prelims. These are things that you have already studied for prelims. You already know what an MSP is. You already know what the National Food Security Act is. You already know what an APMC is. You just need to find little explanations of each of these things. Say, for example, the data that you need to remember about National Food Security as is something along the line of the year in which it was enacted. Or when it comes to MSP, you can try to remember certain data about the MSP for certain food grains, or who regulates MSP in India. Those are only the few details or data that you need to remember. And when it comes to statistics, when I say statistics, you might be like, say, for example, in some particular report, India has ranked second. But in some other report, you might see that India as a country might have performed very poorly. A good strategy to kind of understand what data you should remember and what data you should not recollect is the fact that always try to remember the positive aspects of everything. When should one remember the negative aspects? Okay, maybe there is a topic in which they are asking you for both the pros and cons of a particular subject. Like, say for example, you people are talking about the state of higher education in India. Right. Now you might be going through all the notes that you have, all the things that you have consolidated over all of these months, and you might be thinking, okay, what do I do about it? I cannot find anything positive that I can put into my data or I can recollect per se. You don't need to worry about that. Remember that when it comes to pros and cons with respect to these things, you have to understand that it is purely a matter of where to use it and when to use it. So say for example, if there is a question about unemployment, you can talk about how Maganrega has been a success. But there are certain shortcomings that we need to overcome. Right? So that is how you need to remember your things. Always try to tell yourself that the positive statistic is the one that matters the most, and as such, that is the one that you're going to be recollecting for the greater period of time. Now, this is very important, and a lot of people often forget about it. Numerical data can be remembered as an approximation. A lot of candidates make this particular mistake. What is the particular mistake that they make? The mistake that they make is like, okay, for example, in some particular statistic that has been provided, it is said that 18.23% of something has happened, or 71.04% of something has happened. You don't need to remember the exact percentage. No, that is a big mistake you are going to be making. What you have to exactly keep in mind is, you can say roughly 19%, or you can say roughly 70%. You can use this symbol, roughly 70%. So you have to understand that when I say numerical data can be remembered as an approximation, it is a very important tool for you to be able to crack your mains. Why? Because we cannot remember all of these data. If you can remember numerical data exactly, it's very good. But at the same time, you have to understand that not all of us can remember so much of data at one particular go. So what is our tool? What is our way to go around this particular thing? Approximation. You can say, okay, 18.23%. I can write it as roughly 19%. It means that it's not really 19%, but at the same time, it's not really somewhere around 18 as well. It's a little bit higher than 18 and it's a little bit lower than 19. Or when you say roughly 70%, 71% is roughly a part of the 70 spectrum. So you can say roughly 70%. So remember that your numerical data can be remembered as an approximation. Now use schemes that are common across GS1 and GS2. Now this is very important. This is very, very important. This is a strategy which I have come up with, which has helped me very immensely. So when I say use strategies that are common across GS1 and GS2, one example that comes to my mind is panchayats. Now when I write panchayats, you might be like, sir, GS2 panchayats, I understand, local self-government, 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act 1992. But what does panchayat have to do with GS1? Well, say for example, you have a question about local self-government in India in the ancient and medieval times. They give you a question about that in GS1. As a conclusion, don't you think that you can use panchayats as an example, where you can talk about how The fact that local self-government in India has existed for such a long period of time, and we are merely taking inspiration from the traditions that come before us. You can do that. So that is what I mean to say, that GS1 and GS2 have a lot in common, which you can figure things out. Like one example is that of panchayats. Say for example, if they give you a question about the idea of secularism in India. So say for example, when they're asking you to talk about secularism in India, don't you think we can take examples from GS1? The idea of Sufi movement, the idea of Bhakti movement, the idea about the fact that this idea of India as a melting pot of different cultures is something that has been talked about travelers like Ibn Battuta. It has been talked about travelers like Fashian and Yuan Sang. You can do that. So that is what I said, that when it comes to GS1 and GS2 in particular, they can be interconnected very, very well. And finally, when I say focus on GS3 a lot, I need to elaborate on that a little. So if you'll give me a little bit of time to just erase these things. All right. So when I say focus on GS3 a lot, what do I mean by that? By that I mean, so the first paper that you are going to encounter when you're going to write your mains is going to be the essay paper. The next day, second day, it's going to be GS1 and GS2. Now imagine you're going to give examinations for a total of 9 hours. 9 hours you are going to be writing. After that, when the examination gets over, like say around 5ish, you might be wondering, you are probably going back to the place where you're staying for that moment. And you will be very exhausted to do a proper bit of revision, right? So when I say focus on GS3 a lot, it means like in this span of 1 month that you have consolidate your GS3 so much that when you are going to give your mains examination, on the day when GS1 and GS2 happens, you don't have to revise a lot because you have already focused on GS3 so much that everything is ready and you just need to go back and maybe revise for 1 or 2 hours and then you can have a proper night's sleep. Please remember that when you're going to give your examinations to your respective centers, some of you might have examination centers in their hometowns or a little bit away from their hometown. But for a lot of candidates, they will be moving to entirely different cities to give their examinations. So wherever you might be staying, just remember that a good night's sleep is important before each of these days of the mains examination. It is very, very important, and I urge all of you that please have a decent amount of sleep before each paper. Now we move on to the next slide. All right. Answer writing. Now, in this 1 month that you have, consolidation, like I mentioned, is a key point. But how are you going to consolidate better? In this instance, your tool is going to be answer writing. Solve as many mock tests as you can. However, remember that only solving mock tests will not do. What do I mean by this statement? It means, like, say for example, you are giving a mock test. Let us assume for the sake of this particular point over here, that you are giving a mock test of 200 marks. Maybe a sectional mock test for that matter. Now, out of the 200 marks, maybe you are getting somewhere around 92. Let us assume you are getting somewhere around, yeah, let us assume that you are getting somewhere around 90. Right. Now, a lot of people are going to be disheartened that, oh no, I'm not getting a 3-digit mark. For me to at least be able to go out there on that day and crack that examination, I need to get 3-digit marks in a mock test. Remember, these are mock tests. These are merely simulations. These are merely trying to see whether you have prepared the material properly and whether you're ready for the examination. They are not real representations of what happens there on that day. I have known quite a few people who performed very average on mock tests, but they were able to ace the mains examination and make their way to the personality step, to the personality stage, the personality test stage. Imagine, they did not care much about mock test papers. No, they knew that mock tests are only a representation of what the real thing actually is. So do not be disheartened. Rather, if you see that you are getting 90 out of 200, what is your objective going to be? Your objective is going to be that, okay, I've gotten 90 out of 200. My objective is to make it better. I need to get higher. I need to get a 3-digit mark. So how do I go about it? You have to do self-analysis. You have to do self-analysis. Remember that you cannot rely on your teachers and mentors when it comes to this part of the examination. Because you are mature enough to understand where your faults lie, where you're lacking in some particular matters, or where you can improve the most. So remember that you can solve mock tests as much as you want, but you also have to do self analysis. It is very important if you need to get 3-digit marks in every single paper. It is very important. And when I say that solve as many mock tests as you can, remember that I'm not asking you to solve like 50 or 100 mock tests. No. Like I said, self-analysis. If you think that giving 20 mock tests will do, go for it. If you think that no, I need to give 30 mock tests, go for it. That will do. Remember that you are the best judge of your own capability, and that determines how many mock tests you need to solve. All right. Now, this is important. This is important because remember that on the day of the examination, your nerves are going to be at their utmost productivity. Your nerves are going to be firing on full engines. So you have to remember that because your nerves are operating at their fullest capacity, thoughts will come and go. Your mind will be restless. So you have to prepare yourself accordingly, and that is where the mock tests come into play. But you also have to remember that just because you are giving mock tests doesn't mean you can take your own leisurely time. No. If you're giving a mock test, try to solve it within the 3-hour limit. And how is the best thing to remember? Remember that if your question is a 10 marker, that is, it is of 10 marks, you should take only 6 to 7 minutes to write the answer. And if it is a 15 marker, then you have to take only 10 to 11 minutes. Please time yourself. The best way to time yourself is, I know that it is almost a blasphemy to say that you should be using your smartphones as much as you can at this moment, but here is where the smartphone actually comes into play. All of our smartphones have either a timer or a stopwatch function. As you're trying to write one answer, start the stopwatch. See how much time you're taking. Like at least initially for a 10 marker answer, I'm pretty sure that you are going to take around 10 minutes to write it. Maybe 11 minutes to write it. Your job is to ensure that, okay, this 10 to 11 minute span that I'm taking to write a 10 mark answer, I have to reduce that to 6 to 7 minutes. I've seen some candidates even pull this 6 to 7 minutes under 5 minutes mark. They can write a 10 marker in 5 minutes. And how does that happen? Speed, efficiency, practice. And how will that speed and practice come? Like I mentioned in the previous slide, consolidation. Unless and until your material is consolidated, until your material is interconnected, you won't be able to write 6 to 7 minutes for 10 markers answer. You're going to take like 10 minutes to write a 10 marker answer and 20 minutes to write a 15 marker answer. Don't do that. Time is going to be your biggest enemy in that examination hall. It is literally a race against time. And why have I mentioned this particular time limit? Because you have to understand that your objective is to complete the paper. You cannot let any question go unanswered, because that will hamper your chances of going to the next stage of the examination. So remember, this time limit has been decided. This time limit has been thought about very carefully by all of us here at Bibaswan Educational Foundation, keeping in mind that we have to complete the paper. We have to complete the paper, we have to submit the paper, and that, increases our chances. When I say we have to submit that paper, I obviously do not mean in the sense that, oh no, somebody forgets to submit the examination paper and comes out. No. When I say you have to submit that paper, I mean you have to submit that paper with that thought in your mind that, no, I've completed the paper, and your thoughts are a bit calm. Because your thoughts need to be calm when you're going for the next day of the examination. Now keep a timer handy, as I've already mentioned over here. Keep a timer handy. Now for this, you can use the stopwatch on your smartphone. You can use a timer that is easily available in the markets, and it will allow you to understand how much you can recollect. So remember, in the last slide I was talking about consolidation and note making. a timer is going to be very helpful. So say for example, they're giving you a question about the efficacy of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, what is called Maganrega. Now, when you're writing an answer on Maganrega, say for example, it is a 10 marker answer. Try to see how many points you can recollect in those 10 minutes. And if you see that you are being able to generate at least 15 points on just a 10 marker answer, you know that your material is consolidated properly. So answer writing is one of the most effective ways to consolidate the material that you have studied over the course of this 1 year. Remember, you have to think quickly and write quickly. Train your mind to do both of these things at the same time. Keep practicing. Because when you are there in the examination hall, right? There in the examination hall, the question come answer booklet comes to you. You're first given the question paper and then you're given the question come answer booklet. Now, your first objective is you're going through the question paper. You go through the question paper, you see the questions that are there, and the thing that has to be there in your mind is the fact that, okay, I see a particular thing, I see a particular word, the point should start generating. And don't even stop for a moment to think. As you're giving the mock test, you are going to realize that in the mains examination hall, writing and thinking is not something that happens separately. You can't think for like 30 seconds and then sit down to write. No, you have to write as you're thinking. So your introduction is something that you are thinking at the spur of the moment. And how are you going to do that? By answer writing. So please remember, try to do as much answer writing as you can. Now some pointers about GS4. In the previous slide, I had specifically mentioned GS1, GS2 and GS3. Now GS4 is very important over here because GS3 has something called case studies. Now, what are case studies? Case studies are essentially real life events that will be presented to you in the form of a question and you will be asked to answer upon them, giving your opinion, giving your subjective ideas about it. Now, as a mentor, the thing that I would like to recommend it to you is whenever you're writing the GS4 paper, attempt this first. Then go for the rest of the questions. Always remember that when you're going for your ethics paper, your case study should be the first thing because case studies are very, very long. You will take time to read through it. You will take time to even write the answers because some of the answers are going to be at least 3 to 4 pages long. So remember that case study should be the first thing that you tackle and then you can tackle the remaining part of the paper when it comes to GS4. Alright? Now, this is a very interesting point that might, appeal to a lot of you, which is this fact. Choice of stationery. Now you might be like wondering, why is the choice of stationery so important? What is the pen so important? Why is the pen so important? You have heard of that famous quote, right? The pen is mightier than the sword. Here it literally has to be mightier. Now your options that are available to you in the market are a gel pen, a roller pen, and a ballpoint pen. I would recommend you not to go for a gel pen. I would recommend you not to go for a gel pen because of the fact that there might be instances where you are sweating profusely and the ink might blot because of the gel. So remember that a gel pen is a no-no, and also because I think that a gel pen cannot give you the flexibility that in writing that a roller or a ballpoint pen might provide. So try to not go for a gel pen. I know there are a lot of us who are very comfortable with a gel pen when it comes to writing because a gel pen is very smooth. But a gel pen is not built for these scenarios where you have to write continuously and you have to write fast. So don't go for a gel pen. There is a blotting problem as well as the fact that it hinders your writing speed a lot. I speak about this from personal experience. Now when it comes to roller, I would also say that it's a no-no because a roller pen is very heavy. When I say heavy, it means that when you're trying to write with it, it kind of also slows down your speed. A roller pen is absolutely very smooth. It is very well suited for writing when you're writing very fast paced. But at the same time, roller pen suffers from the same problem as a gel pen. That is, it might blot through the paper. And second, most importantly, it's a little bit heavy on the back side. Right? So imagine this is a pen. The roller pen might be heavy around this portion. Right? So don't go for a roller pen. The safest bet is to go for a ballpoint pen. A ballpoint pen is absolutely the best choice when you have to choose your stationery. And remember, choose one ballpoint pen right now and stick to it till the end of the examination, because if you keep changing your stationery, you will not get used to it. And because you will be using one particular stationery for elongated period of times, like say for a month now, your hand will get used to it. You will understand that, okay, if I write in this particular manner, I can write fast with this particular pen. So yeah, remember, your choice of stationery matters a lot. All right, on to the next slide. Optionals. Now, all of us have a choice when it comes to UPSC mains examinations. And what is the only choice that we can make? Well, the choice of our optionals, the subject that we can prepare based on our own choice. Now, optionals are the make and break of your result. There are some candidates who might have performed very averagely in the 4 GS4 papers, in the essay paper, but they have aced the examination purely on the basis of how amazingly they have scored in the optionals. So your optionals are very important. Now, when it comes to the syllabus of an optional, it's very vast. It's vast, right? But keep in mind that this 1 month that you have left right now is not for revising your optionals. No. What you have to do right now is, you know, take certain sections of the optionals that you think you are weak in, and then try to revise that as much as you can. That is the only thing you can do for optionals, because I personally think that when you're preparing over the course of 1 year, when you're preparing for both prelims and mains at the same time, that is also the period when your optionals should have been ready, means ready, as I like to say, right? So the thing is, try to revise the weak parts of your optionals, or maybe there might be certain portions of your optionals that you don't like to study or not. Try revising them, because if you get a question from them and you know that I might not like a particular portion of that paper, but I've read that so much that I can ace a question on it. Your objective is not whether you like or dislike a particular thing. Your objective is to get as many marks as you can. So revise those particular things. PYQ analysis is a must. Remember, you cannot skip this when it comes to optionals. Never. I have analyzed a lot of sociology. I have analyzed a lot of PSIR. I have analyzed a lot of anthropology papers over the years. Questions are repeated every year. Even questions are repeated verbatim, like word to word. Okay, like say for example, there might be a question for sociology, there may be a question on Alfred Weber 1 year. The same question will be repeated word for word, maybe like 4 or 5 years later. That is why PYQ analysis is a must. For optionals, at least, is the most important thing. For GS1, GS2, GS3, and GS4, yes. But at the same time, for optionals, it's the most important thing because questions are repeated, right? So remember that at this time, your consolidation should involve a heavy deal of PYQ analysis. And different optionals have different marking schemes. Understand that marking scheme and practice your answers. So say for example, there might be some optionals where you have to write 25 mark answers. How much time do you have to devote to that? Well, if you are devoting 10 to 11 minutes for a 15 marker, then you have to understand that, okay, if it is 10 to 11 minutes for a 15 marker, then this should be somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes for this particular thing. So accordingly, you have to decide, and the only way to do that is doing answer rating. And remember that if you are revising at this particular moment, when you're consolidating your notes at this particular moment, your main objective is to understand your time management really, really well. Because in 3 hours, you have to complete an entire paper. You have to read the question, read, think, and write at the same time. So yeah, please understand that the marking schemes. What does a 10 marker question require? What does a 15 marker question require? What does a 20 marker question require? What does a 25 marker question require? You have to understand that thing and you have to accordingly work upon it. And keep your notes for optionals at this moment short and crisp as you can. Like say for example, maybe you're preparing for your optional, say for example, let us assume history. Now for history, let us assume that the main notes that you have, they're somewhere around 500 pages. Remember that if you start making notes for your optionals right now, you're doomed. Don't do that. From this 500 notes, try to reduce that to maybe 20 or 30 pages. It's not impossible. I've seen people do this. I have done this myself for my optional as well. So 20 to 30 pages only. Keep it as short and crisp as you can. And how are you going to do it? Oh, you only make notes for the parts that you think that you are a little bit weak at. That is the only thing you need to do over here. All right. Now we move on to the next slide. Mental health. Now, a lot of us often ignored this particular thing in the course of this mains examination. But trust me, the game changer is how good your mental health is. This is the biggest game changer. Your mentality on the day of the examination and in the weeks leading up to the examination determines everything about what you're going to do, how you're going to perform in that particular examination. Now, you might not have much time to talk to people right now because you might be studying for 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, 14 hours a day, right? You might be preparing for such a long period of time. But you also have to remember this thing that maybe you might feel a bit frustrated. You might feel irritated at certain people. You might feel angry about certain things. How are they happening? Why is it happening? Try to talk to people. And when I say talk to people, I don't mean go on social media and start interacting with everybody. No. If you have your few close friends, try to talk to them. Talk to your parents, talk to your teachers and mentors who will be there for you. Because you have to understand that these are the people who are sharing this journey with you as well. So you have to share your burden of the journey with them as well. It eases you out. So remember, talk it out. And like I've said, keep your mind free of any stress. If you think that you're feeling irritated by something, talk it out. One of the things that you can do is, say for example, you have been preparing for 4 hours at a stretch. Now you might think like, okay, I can't focus anything at the moment. Stop at that moment. Take a half an hour break. Take a 20-minute break. Just take a small walk around your house, or maybe just listen to some music if you can. Right? Don't go through social media because you're going to get stuck in that addictive loop. Right? So remember, keep your mind free of any stress. There is an examination that you have to crack. You have to keep this in mind. This is an examination. So think of this as just an advanced stage of all the examinations that you have given throughout your school life, throughout your college life. It is just essentially that. Now, hydration is key. A lot of people will not talk about hydration, but you have to understand these are summers. The monsoons are very humid this year. Hydration is key. Drink water frequently. Drink, glucose in this particular times. Like, when you're going to the examination, or drink a little bit of glucose before you go. Right? It will give you that necessary adrenaline rush, the necessary sugar boost that you need. Eat healthy. Try not to go for too much junk food. Hydration is very, very important, but these are little things that a lot of people won't tell you. But these are things that you need to keep in mind. Now, one advice that I would like to give to you as a mentor is the fact that go out once every day. Like, say for example, you have been preparing since like 8 in the morning to like say 5 in the evening. So that is roughly a span of roughly somewhere around 6 to 7 hours, if I might just say so. Right? You have been preparing for 6 to 7 hours, 8 hours at a stretch. Your mind will reach a saturation point. What do you do at this moment? Do you stay in your house? No. Go out. Go out a bit, explore the world. When I say explore the world, I mean just take a walk, see everything around you, and then just come back home refreshed. Don't think too much when you're going out for a walk. It will also keep you healthy and on your toes. So take this break. Going out of your house once a day is good enough. Do that because it will keep your mind healthy. And finally, this is just an examination. You have to pass it. It is not the be all and end all of life. Remember this particular thing. It might sound like something that I am saying just for the sake of it, but no, this is just an examination. It's not your life. It is a part of your life. So keep this in mind. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. Best of luck from all of us here at Bibaswan Educational Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you for learning with Bibaswan Educational Foundation. For contents like this, follow us on Facebook and Instagram today.